I don't like this question. I feel.
Oh, you don't like it?
I feel offended.
Rihanna is hiding her true thoughts about A$AP Rocky, but not for the reason you might think. A$AP is about to go on trial for allegedly attacking one of his former friends with a firearm back in 2021. He insists that he's totally innocent, but if he's found guilty, he's facing 24 years in prison. That is a long time, especially for a man with 2 young children. But everybody is just obsessing over one particular question. What does Rihanna think about all this? The answer may shock you. Rihanna hasn't shown up to any of A$AP Rocky's hearings, hasn't talked about the shooting, or even acknowledged the trial. And people online are reading into that in every single way. Some people think that she's distancing herself from him, which I really do not buy. I mean, we've known Rihanna's history with men for years now, and she's never been afraid to stand by her man, even during the most controversial times. And given how in love they've been for years now, I just can't see her doing that right now. But that's not to say that she's happy about any of this. As soon as A$AP was arrested in 2022, we all knew that Rihanna would be dragged into this, even though she had nothing to do with it. But apparently, she's really on edge about it all. Supposedly, Rihanna and A$AP have been in a rough patch for months because of this trial approaching. And who wouldn't be? It's not like it's some petty crime that will be swept under the rug and never mentioned again. The guy could go to prison, and that would change everything for their family. He can't exactly be a father when he's in prison for 24 years. That's his kids' entire childhoods and more. Don't you think Rihanna would be struggling under that pressure too? Because let's be honest, this is an impossible situation for her. Like I said, she's been known to stand by her man even when the world is against them. And we know that, more often than not, that's a pretty terrible move that hasn't really ever worked out for her. And now, given her huge success, she could lose everything if she makes the wrong decision. Her reputation, her brand image, her family, it's all hanging on what she says and does. If she publicly supports him and he's found guilty of trying to harm someone else, she'll have to defend her decision for years to come. But if she says nothing, then she stands a good chance of weathering whatever the outcome might be. It's a wild situation to be in. If A$AP does end up going to prison, she's going to end up raising her kids on her own, which is far from easy for anyone, let alone one of the world's most famous women. So obviously, she's going to be terrified of that outcome. I mean, she said in an interview years ago that she would be down to be a single mom, but now the situation is totally different. For one thing, she's not single anymore. She actually has someone to raise these kids with, someone that she clearly loves and wants to keep in her children's lives. Plus, the pressure of raising those kids while running all of her businesses must be a lot. I don't think anybody could truly handle that level of stress without someone to support them. But are Rihanna and A$AP actually as solid as they claim to be? I mean, they're not even seen all that often anymore. At one point, they were all over the media, engaging in PDA and going on dates. Now, they're basically only seen at events and very occasional date nights. Supposedly, this whole trial situation has really caused trouble for them at home. They're not even spending that much time together at home because they're so overwhelmed that they just keep snapping at one another, which isn't the best environment to raise a family in anyway. And the more that Rihanna keeps her thoughts to herself, the more unsure the relationship is going to seem. I mean, some people online are convinced that her silence is a sign that she's already planning to break up with him. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens at some point. I mean, we know that celebrity publicists always have plans cooked up for basically every conceivable outcome to a publicity disaster. And you can bet that Rihanna's publicists are the best of the best. So who's to say that isn't going to happen at some point? If you want my opinion, I honestly think that Rihanna would love to support A$AP during this whole thing. I mean, she went back to Chris Brown after all of that legal chaos, and she was actually directly involved in that one. But I think her silence is really for 2 reasons. Firstly, I think that she's smart enough to know that any comment from her will basically tie her to the actual case and make it impossible to shake it, especially if she supports him and he's ultimately found guilty. That will linger around her brand for years to come. But the other point is that the more attention she brings to the case, the harder it will be for A$AP to shake it off, which is also why A$AP's lawyer is stressing that her absence from the courtroom is all A$AP's idea, something he's doing to protect his family and keep them away from the trial. I'm pretty sure that this is Rihanna's thought process too. If she shows up at the courtroom, it will be a much bigger story for everybody involved. I think she's right to keep her distance in this case. I'm sure that they could be a strong couple even if ASAP is in prison, but why would Rihanna want to do that? He can't see his children, they can't spend any time together. It'll basically be like they're not even together. And even though I think that she truly wants to support him, I can totally see the argument that she might just be keeping her options open. I mean, it would be much easier for her to walk away if she didn't publicly support him before the trial. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but I don't expect it. ASAP's lawyer is pretty convinced that he'll be proven innocent, and I think Rihanna is counting on that. But honestly, if the victim was shot and has evidence, then I don't really know how he's going to get out of that one. And that 24-year sentence will make it very difficult for them to try and move forward as a couple, especially if she doesn't want to become a single mom. That's a difficult enough role for a normal mother, but Rihanna also has a lot of jobs and so many eyes on her. That's enough to send someone into a full-on breakdown. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Rihanna is staying silent to protect ASAP and the family? Or is she staying silent because she's already planning her escape from the situation? Do you think these two are going to make it through this challenge? Again, I honestly do not believe that Rihanna is the kind of person to just abandon ASAP when he's in a situation like this. But also, she's never been in this position before. This time, she has 2 children who are relying on her and ASAP to provide for them and give them a stable and safe home. And if their father is in prison for a serious crime, it's pretty difficult to imagine how they're going to be able to do that. I have absolutely no idea if they're even going to be able to make it through this one, but I honestly hope that Rihanna and her kids are able to navigate this in a way that doesn't end up harming the children themselves. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below.